Hey everybody, what up? Scuffy here. And it's been a little bit overdue, but not entirely overdue. It's time for a card by card. It's time for the Thousand Suns card by card, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for decimation, is what Perturabo would say. No, we're not doing decimation. We're doing Thousand Suns card by card. And I think it's right on point, right on time. I held off on this one for the 2 weeks necessary. Actually, I guess 4 weeks. 2 weeks of the Thousand Suns event, 2 weeks of the Custodians event. I could tell they were going to do some changes. There was definitely some early changes needed on the cards. Then there was a second wave of revisions. There might still be a couple tinkling third wave revisions down the road, but I think at this point it's safe to say that the Thousand Suns have settled. The dust has settled, so to speak. If you are not aware, all is dust. Thousand Suns is ultimately fated to be. So let's take a look at what they do. First off, let's talk about the Psyker mechanic. Now, if you played the game at all during the course of the last two events, or you have Thousand Suns cards, you should be somewhat familiar with the Psyker mechanic. But if you're not, the Psyker mechanic has been introduced with the Thousand Suns. Currently, it is exclusive to them. From indications in talking with the Everguild staff, it sounds like Psyker will probably most likely remain exclusive to them. Down the road, you never know, but for the time being, for a very long time, this is what they have. So, currently, a card with Psyker, in this case Ahriman, has Psyker 2, generates a second pool of energy, in addition to the normal pool that ticks up from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 each turn. Psyker Energy is generated by troops and warlords on table. So at the start of each turn, he gains 2 Psyker Energy. If he has another troop with 2 Psyker, you gain a total of 4 Psyker. That pool does not go away. That pool does not diminish if it's not used. You don't take mana burn. It builds up if you don't use it. So if you don't use it for 3 turns and you've generated just from Ahriman, you should have Psyker 6, and at the start of your 4th turn you would have Psyker 8, and you have 8 energy to use for cards that cost psychic energy as opposed to your standard energy. And that is ultimately what the Thousand Suns do, and that's how they operate. That's how they maintain efficiency. That's how they maintain superiority at certain times. And that's definitely how they got themselves at the top of everybody's hit list and requests for changes and nerfs. I'm not going to go over the changes and nerfs here. I could go over them some other time. At this point, it's been just about a week. They're in place. They are what they are. So we're going to take a look at the cards for what they are, for themselves. Starting with Ahriman, who's the chief librarian. He's a warlord. So now not only does he have Psyker 2, which we just talked about, Precognition is now also an ability that's been introduced with the Thousand Suns. However, it is not exclusive to the Thousand Suns. Precognition means that troops, or rather any unit that has precognition, cannot be targeted by attacks. Now, they can still be targeted by abilities, they can still be targeted by tactics that deal damage, they can still take random damage, they can still take cleave damage, but they cannot be specifically targeted. So a lone Ahriman with precognition somehow, and it's possible to give him precognition somehow, cannot be hit with a goldstone at the end of the game to win the game because he cannot be attacked. Your opponent's going to have to wait till the next turn. If you've got a troop on board, they cannot be hit by a flank troop because that flanker can come out, but it's not going to be able to attack them. So precognition in and of itself is a powerful ability. It's a good ability. And Ahriman allows you to give it to a friendly troop. On top of that, he can act again. So if you build up a pool of Psyker Energy, you have 6, 8 Psyker Energy, and you drop 2 or 3 troops, you can selectively give precognition to all of them the turn that you put them into play. Your opponent cannot attack them. Your opponent can do tactics damage to them, can kill them with other means, destroy cards and such, or they can just straight attack Ahriman. Now, it's important to note that if you put precognition on a front line, it's as if that they don't have front line, basically. If I can't attack it, it's just like if you put stealth on the front line. I can't attack it, so I can attack your warlord. I've seen some players make that mistake. Sometimes maybe they do it on purpose, but ultimately not a smart thing to do unless you've got a reason for it. So Ahriman protects his brothers. He protects his brothers by giving them precognition and trying to keep them safe so that they don't take a boot to the face. Now Magnus the Red, Magnus is the Red's current iteration. I'm probably going to get sweaty here because I'm in a 85, 88 degree vehicle in the sun. I've turned the engine off and I'm going to do this. I'm going to sweat it out under the 1,000 suns. So if I look sweaty, it's not because well, maybe it is because I'm super intense in the 1,000 suns. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm in a hot car. I don't care. I'm doing it, baby. So Magnus the Red, this is his current iteration. He has Psyker 2. He has a Whispers, of course, and he has the ability for 2 Psyker Energy. He can deal 1 to 3 damage. This ability is his current ability. Let's not talk about his ability in the past. Why it still says shield over here? Well, at one point in time, he had the ability to grant shield. And then he had the ability to grant shield just to a troop because he was giving it to himself. And now he doesn't have that anymore, but for some reason this part is still showing up on screen. His initiative is medium. However, having random damage on command is not bad. Generating Psyker Energy is not bad. But let's take a look at his Whispers. His Whispers is kind of unique. It's unique for a few reasons. Number one, look at the cost on this thing. 25 cost. I believe this might be the most expensive Whispers to date. However, he becomes the Shard of Magnus, and it's -1 cost each time he takes damage. Now that means each time he takes damage, not after he takes damage, it's reduced 1 for each damage taken. So if he takes 5 damage from one source, your Whisper's cost will only be reduced 1. And he becomes the Shard of Magnus. He gains Can't Attack. Now this is the first transition of a Warlord gaining Can't Attack, which is, you know, when you think about it, that feels like a hindrance. However, his Psyker goes to 3. His ability now costs 3, which is, you know, easily done because his Psyker Energy can replace that, but it gives him shield, and it deals 1 to 3 damage to all enemies. So he goes from being able to do it to 1 target to doing it to all targets, not just troops, and he gains shield to boot. If you're willing to give yourself some self-inflicted damage, and some people are doing that and trying that with various results, whether with Unreliable Informant, Crumbling City, I mean, there's methods to do it. There's definitely methods to do it, as well as your opponent just attacking you with little damage as opposed to massive damage. You can go to Shield Magnus very quickly. And then, in his own strange way, he can establish board supremacy. And on top of that, with shield and killing all the little light things that come on the table, it's going to be very hard to do anything against him. So Magnus, a very powerful warlord, very powerful. Phosis Takar. Phosis Takar has, his ability hasn't changed. He's got low initiative, so that's working against him. He does start with an extra card like most of your rare warlords. He's got a very interesting ability, though. He puts in play a Psychic Barrier. Now, Psychic Barrier has seen some revisions, so this is now its current iteration. It does have Can't Attack, it has 1 health, 1 attack, but it also has shield and it has frontline. So for 2 Psyker Energy, you're putting this thing into play that requires your opponent to hit it 2 times to get rid of it. Now, if they don't, it destroys this troop at the start of your turn, and your warlord takes 1 damage. So, you could say, in a way, Phosis Takar's got an ability that puts out a Psychic Barrier, you know, at the start of your turn, take 1 damage, but if you're using his Psychic Barrier to protect other troops that you're putting into play, that might not be a bad thing. Helios Mortar Carrier, Sagittarius Squad, a lot of the neutral cards, Duke Mortimer, Jubok, you know, being able to protect them from a Goldstone, being able to protect them from a flanking troop, just by throwing out a shield and taking 1 health damage, but still gaining the massive, I'm going to turn on the AC now because the sweat's coming. It's happening. It's getting early, so you're going to have to excuse me if there's some background music. When I say music, I mean like the AC and the car engine rumbling. I'm going to try to talk louder than that, but I'll cool off. Oh, yes. Is this what it was like? Is this what it was like on Prospero when it was burning and they were like, we just want AC? Magnus, the city is burning around us, but we just need some AC and we'll feel okay. So, he can take 1 damage, but if he's gaining the edge by having those Sagittarius squad or the Helios Morticar deal 3 damage, maybe that's not a bad trade-off. It's still a little iffy. The changes to the Psyker Berry have definitely weakened his playstyle. His low initiative is not the greatest, but it kind of offsets his ability, because his ability, especially late game, if you've got the right troops on table, is really frustrating. It's really frustrating. And if you can heal him to some degree, or throw out Manifest Destiny on him and prolong his ability to use his ability, you've got something going. Now, Haster Squad, this guy's a 1-cost Psyker 1, low stat. They've been in some event decks. I would not include them in your normal decks, even though they're common. It's just not worth it for a 1 Psyker. That's kind of your typical junk common. Imperium Purpose. If you are just now starting out a Thousand Suns deck, or even in a certain sealed environment, like the events, being able to create 2 random psychic powers is not bad. Depends on what you get. Sometimes you'll get 2 cards that are really great, and sometimes you might get 2 that you just don't want at that point in time. But for a 2-cost energy, this does not cost you any Psyker energy. You could use Imperium Purpose, create a psychic abilities in hand, and then still play those cards the same turn. So it's not a bad card. Early on, when I was testing the decks with Thousand Suns when they first came out, I didn't have all the Psyker tactics. I didn't have 2 copies of a couple of the tactics, so I included Imperium Purpose, and that definitely helped out. It did. It was a little random, but at the same time, that's the course of evolution and collecting a deck. Now, Flesh Change is thematic, very thematic with regards to the Thousand Suns. Their abundance of using their abilities ultimately prompts them to manifest the Flesh Change, and usually in devastating and unfortunately mortal results. In this case here, you destroy a friendly Astartes and you gain 5 psychic energy. In some playstyles, it works very well to bring in a low-cost, cheap troop who has a rally effect ability, like these guys. Calmex Squad. Now, their stats are not great, but for rally, they're gaining you 2. For a 4 energy combo, you can play these guys, gain 2 Psyker energy, Flesh Change them, and gain 5 Psyker energy. So for 4 energy, you just gain 7 Psyker energy. And that's big. That's big for certain combos. And we'll talk about the combo nature of the Thousand Suns at the end of all of this. These guys are not bad. You have to have a reason to put them in your deck. If your reasoning is get as much Psyker energy for the end game combo, these are not a bad rare to have. Siamon Squad. These guys are not hugely great, but they're good if you can protect them. They've got Psyker 1, which is nice. Their ability costs 2, so it costs more than what they're generating. So if you're going to use their ability, it's going to cost more. Their low stats is what I don't like. The 2 health, they can take a face hit from a warlord and they're gone. So there are various ways that the Thousand Suns have to protect these guys, but they're not that great. Their Psyker ability to pay 2 Psyker energy and dealing 1 to 3 damage, it's kind of like a little mini Magnus. That's not bad. However, I think early game, if you can get them protected, they're not bad for a turn or 2 to generate a couple extra points, but I wouldn't use them for their ability unless I knew that it would finish off an opponent's troop. And usually I don't like to use it unless they've got like 1 health remaining. And then I might pay the 2 Psyker energy and basically, pay more than I'm getting for these guys just to ensure that I got rid of a troop. Prohotope Recon. Prohotpo? Yeah, Prohotpo. Prohotpe Recon. Man, these names are gonna give me a go. Now these guys have also got Psyker 1. Their ability costs 2. Costs 2 now. But their stat has a 3 health. Their ability though lets you draw a card, and that can be very useful. The one thing that when you're playing cards that from 2 energy pools. You're able to play regular energy, and then you're able to play the tactics from your hand that cost Psyker energy. You could go through your hand fairly quickly. Prahatpe Recon allows you to replace those cards, or fill up your cards rather. It also helps the fact that because the Thousand Suns are kind of a combo-based legion, it helps you get the pieces that you need to your combo. They're not bad. Again, the 3 health stat, 2 cost, they're probably those guys and these guys are probably your best 2-cost troop to go for if you have to choose a 2-cost troop. Now, Scrying, I like the artwork here. I really do. I do not like the ability. I don't like the execution of it. Reflection is something that we've seen here introduced with regards to the Thousand Suns. It's unique to them at the time it came out, and we've seen it on some new neutral cards. So I think we're going to see it across the board. Reflection is, this card can be played multiple times during the same turn. So what happens is you play this card, you gain the ability, and then the card goes back to your hand. Well, Scrying allows you to reveal a random card in your opponent's hand. If it's a tactic, you create a copy in your hand, and then it goes back to your hand. You can do it again. It costs 2 Psyker Energy. So if you've got 10 Psyker Energy, let's just say your opponent has got 2 cards in hand, and they both happen to be tactics. You could copy those tactics 5 times, and because it costs Psyker Energy, maybe you could then play those cards 5 times. I mean, that's really pushing it. There's a couple reasons why I don't like this. Number one, it reveals a random card each time. So the second time you play it, it's still going to reveal a random card. You may reveal the same card that you've already revealed, even if it's a troop. I like the fact that revealing a random card in your opponent's hand is now a thing in the game, because it opens up the doors for a lot more mechanical stuff in terms of reveal a card from your opponent's hand. If it's X, do this. That could become an entire Legion's playstyle. I would not be surprised if we see something like that with the Dark Angels per se. But, or even Ultramarines. I mean, theoretical, practical. Ooh, I don't know. I mean, there's so many ways to go about it. But on top of that, this also can impact Whispers, but it doesn't copy Whispers. Whispers are not tactics, which is kind of contrary to what the game says, that there's no cards can interact with the Whisper cards in your hand. Well, Scrying can. Scrying can reveal a Whisper. So if you're facing an Angron and he's got 2 cards in hand and he hasn't used his Whisper yet, there's a 50% chance that the only card that you're going to get is his Whisper, and it won't do you any good. You'll be like, yeah, I know he's got that. All right, what's the other card? Nope, it's the Whisper again. What's the other card? What has he got? So if you're throwing it out there just to kind of confuse your opponent, or to kind of as a little tactic, but by itself, or even building a deck strategy around it, I do not like Scrying. But I do like the artwork. Oncat Sect is really cool. These guys are good. These guys are good for a variety of reasons. Number one, they're 3 cost. Okay, they're pretty basic. They have Psyker 1, and they've got 3 health. Okay, all right. Their ability costs more than they generate, just like we've seen with other Psyker troops, but their ability is very good. They return a friendly troop to your hand. That means a friendly troop that maybe was just about to die, a friendly troop with an awesome rally ability, which we'll see down the road. Maybe it's even a friendly troop that your opponent gave you, like an Alpha Legion operative, a sleeper operative. Okay, I'll just pick up that sleeper operative, and now he's in my hand, and I can give him to you. So these guys have got a lot of use, because they've got 3 health. They might survive long enough to use their ability once or twice, not just because of their health, but because of the nature of the Thousand Suns with precognition and frontline and shield and psychic barriers. They kind of help reinforce a rally concept. I mean, being able to just use these guys with las rifle section, it's a little bit of a watered down version, but it works just the same. Now, Basamut Squad, I actually prefer these guys because they're flank, and I cannot stress the importance of flank. But to go with that, they also have Unstoppable. The downside is that their stats are very low. They're 2-3, but they have Unstoppable and they have flank. This allows them to deal with your 2 health threats, like the speeder squads or the scimitar jet bikes of the Raven Guard. Even really kind of helps you deal with Jubok, who might be behind a front a front line, or who's just not behind a front line, but you can still deal with them. And then you've got a body on the table. Now, they don't have Psyker, but they do have flank, and that is just as good. City of Light is... I think it's really a sleeper. I think this is great, and I almost caution it as a 2 of. It's not necessary to have a 2 of, but giving your Warlord Psyker 1 doesn't seem like much because your Warlords already have Psyker 2. Each of these Warlords have Psyker 2. But if you give them Psyker 1, then they have Psyker 3, and then suddenly you're generating a surplus of Psyker energy compared to the abilities of what they're using. And if you can get this out on turn 2, you will have a wealth of Psyker energy to use at the end of the game for whatever it is that you want to use it with. Or not even at the end of the game. Mid-game, you can use more than you would have had at that point. City of Light is really good. I really like it. I like the thematic for it. I like the idea for it, and I push it as a 2 of. It doesn't have to be, but when you get Psyker 4, you come see me. Enumerations. Now, this card is very interesting. The artwork is very nice. It has reflection, so it's going to go back to your hand. It costs 3 Psyker energy, but it lets you draw 2 cards. Again, key draw, value. Now here's a Psyker ability. It's a card that lets you draw 2 cards. Or you've got a troop here for 2 that lets you draw 1 card, but only use that once. But it's a fine line in how you use it, because this has got reflection, so it comes back to your hand. Now, if you use it again, you just used 6 Psyker energy, but you've drawn 4 cards. And then it goes back to your hand again. So let's say you started with a hand of 5, and you played it. You go down to 4. You draw 2, you're at 6. It goes back to your hand, you're at 7. You play it. You go down to 6. You draw 2 cards, you're at 8. It goes back to your hand, you've got 9. Now you can only play it one more time, and you'll have a full hand. And that's might be more detrimental than you want, not to mention at that point you've depleted yourself 9 Psyker energy. So Enumerations is a very good card in a pinch or early game if you just don't have enough cards that you want for your combos. But mid to late game, it's a slippery slope. It's not something that you want to have to use more than once. I don't know if it's a staple in every deck, but if you're finding that you're just not getting the cards that you need, and you don't really want to put in a Lectitio Divinatus, Enumerations is not a bad replacement. Now, Mechador Cabal, these guys were originally a 3-3. I wish they would bring them back to a 3-3, but I understand why. They are now Psyker 1. They also used to be Psyker 2, but I understand why. But their rally ability is so cool. They've got a rally ability that they put in two Psyker barriers. So now, yes, when these guys come into turn, essentially, you are potentially damaging your Warlord the next turn for 2 damage if your opponent doesn't destroy those. But you're protecting these guys who will generate you Psyker energy and who can then deal 3 damage of their own. Or, if you're really crazy, you can use Enquête Sect to return these guys back to your hand and play them again on the next turn. Now, you're really pushing the envelope, but maybe that's your strategy, Magnus the Red, with your Whispers to turn into Shard and Magnus. Maybe that's your strategy. Parade Squad. Now, initially, I didn't like Parade Squad because of the stats, but he kept Psyker 2, and he's kind of grown on me. Yeah, his attack is not great, but if I don't attack with him, and I make him a target for my opponent, and each turn I'm generating 2 Psyker, maybe that's not such a bad thing for 3. Probably will see more play in events. If you are very, very low on Psyker cards or Thousand Suns cards, he's not bad. He's not great, but he's not bad. Prosper and Lore. I did a spoiler on this card here, and it was at one time it had draw a card. It doesn't have that anymore. So it's basically just a straight up Dark Ritual, 3 energy for 3 Psyker energy. That's not a bad thing. It's not a great thing anymore. Again, if you're pinching, if you're hurting, it might be a way to go. But maybe Flesh Change is just the better version of it. I mean, you've got Prosper and Lore, which costs 3, but now you've got Flesh Change, which costs 2. Flesh Change requires a sacrifice, but you gain 2 more Psyker energy. If I had to choose between the two, Psychic Lash. Now, Psychic Lash is a card that single-handedly was responsible for a lot of hate on the Thousand Suns, and I can't say I blame him. I can't say I blame him. It now costs 3. It now deals 1 to 3. It has reflection, and it deals it to a random enemy. So, late game Psychic Lash. Let me just put this out there for if you haven't played the Thousand Suns yet. What does this mean? How is this possible? It's very possible for a Thousand Suns player to have 20 plus Psyker Energy at the end of a game. When I say end of a game, I mean like whenever they feel like they've got enough to end it. But let's just say they've got 20 Psyker Energy, and your opponent's Warlord is the only thing that's on the table. Well, I guess it's not so random who the Psychic Lash is going to hit 6 times, and that's anywhere between 6 to 18 damage on their Warlord. It's a slow death. It's a lash of many lashes, of many Psychic Lashes, mind bullets, if you will. But that's how it works. It's very combo driven. It's very reflective, and there's a couple other cards that work similar or in addition to this. The Telos Changers have been changed as a result of this card. It doesn't have to always end the game. Again, it can deal just 6 damage, and it would deplete your opponent's entire resource pool. But if you are in a position like that, you are open and vulnerable to this being the thing that ends the game for you. Now, Quick Blood, I like it. It's a great stat boost. It doesn't have reflection, so that's important to note. It does not have reflection, but it gives +2/+2 to a friendly troop. And the fact that it does not cost normal energy, you can bring in a troop and Quick Blood it from your Psyker pool and make it a +2/+2 troop on the same turn without any effort other than having the card in your hand. So, if you want, you could make your Mechador Cabal a 5/4 who is now protected by 2 Psyker barriers. Conversely, you could also play Warp Portal and return him to your hand and reduce its cost by 2. Now, this is another very clutch, very interesting card. For 1 energy more than what Ankhet Sect is costing you, you're doing the same thing, but you're also reducing that troop's cost by 2. Mechador Cabal for 1 energy on my next turn, and then I can still play other cards? Maybe not so bad. Maybe not so bad. So both of those two, they don't have reflection. They're very utility. You have to kind of know what you're doing with them in your deck. But they're both serve a very good purpose. Now, Amuna's squad, I like these guys. I think these guys are just a solid 4/4. They've got Psyker 1, and they're unstoppable. That's it. That doesn't seem like it needs to be a lot, but 4 stats currently in the Thousand Suns stat line, that's kind of the dividing line. You got 1 step below, you've got 3 health, 1 health, 2 attack, maybe 3 attack with a shoddy health to begin with. Now you've suddenly got a guy who's got 4 and 4, who can generate Psyker Energy, and who's unstoppable. I would say these guys are probably a 2 of in most of your early games of Thousand Suns, your early deck designs. Are they necessary down the road? Maybe not. There might be better neutral options, might be better rare options, there might be better tactic options. But I do like them. I think they're useful. Octo. This is a staple. 2 would be a strong recommendation. I don't even think 2 is overkill. I think 2 is a staple. I would recommend it. If you are looking for Thousand Suns, you need Octo. If they're in the shop and you don't have Octo, buy an Octo. It will cost you 100 gems, but it will be worth it. This card here deals 4 damage, just like the Chariot of the Gods of the Sons of Horus. The difference is this is a rare and that is a common. So for a rare, you also gain the text, if you have no troops in play, return this card to your deck and draw a card. Chariot of the Gods is just 4, draw a card. So what's different? I'm drawing a card, I'm dealing 4 damage. Well, the difference is it's conditional, draw a card, but it goes back to your deck. So it's very possible to put this back to your deck and draw this card again. It's even more possible to have that happen if you have only 2 cards left in your deck and they're both Octos. Or no cards in your deck. When the initial event with 1,000 Suns, even following the revisions to this card, because initially this card did not have return this card to your deck, it was return it to your hand. I'll just throw that out there. You just imagine that. It was like a cheaper, rarer, more effective Pride of the Emperor. They changed that, so it has to go back to your deck and draw a card. But even following that revision, there have been several events where I've gotten down to 0 cards in deck. I've got an Oncto in hand, and guess what I'm going to be able to play every turn. It's not going to cost me any overdraw damage because it's going into my deck and I'm drawing 1 card, and then I can play it again. Because this costs normal energy, I can play Oncto, deal 4 damage, and then still play Psyker Energy cards like Psychic Lash or Witchfire. Oncto is killer, and it deals 4 damage, and 4 damage deals with a lot of troops. Staple, period. Ayu Amun Rhino. Ayu Amun Rhino. I spoiled this one too, and I still can't pronounce it. These guys are just a great frontline. Their ability, yeah, it's gone up. It's a 2 Psyker Energy now to draw an Astartes from your deck. But that's not bad. I don't think that's bad at all. Their frontline, they're 4/4/4. They're still vulnerable to Crack Grenade. You don't have to use them to attack. If you want, you can use them to draw an Astartes. Depending on your build, you might only have 2 or 3 specific Astartes that you're looking for. Not a bad card, and it's a reasonably cost frontline. Now, Max Squad, their ability is a bit of a trap. For their ability, for 1 Psyker Energy, which is basically the same thing as what they're generating, you can just pump them up. If you're able to protect them, that's great, but they're not going to be able to gain Act again. So if you pump them up, 1 turn, they're a 4/5, 2 turn, they're a 5/6, 3 turn, they're a 6/7. Really what you're doing is you're giving your opponent 3 turns to destroy this troop, be it with attacks or with tactics. So personally, I feel like they're a 4/4 they're a 4 who should just be a 3/4 attack, and you gain Psyker for a turn or 2. I don't really see using their ability as a good way to do it. Now, Penthu Dast, this guy, Apothecary Primus, Penthu Dast. Psyker 1, Precognition. For 2, he heals 3. He can heal 3 to himself, he can heal 3 to a friendly unit, to your Warlord, and he has Precognition. So your opponent has to take him with tactic damage or ability damage. They cannot attack him. They can jam him. They could use sabotage. They could use sabotage! Or they could jam him with another, like a rally, the guys who rally and jam a target. But his ability is great. It costs more than what he generates, but if you're bringing him out at turn 4, it's very possible that you're in a position that you've got a wealth or some abundance of Psyker Energy, and I mean that's probably the most annoying. It's arguable to say if he is more annoying or if Gunnarsson from the Space Wolves is the more annoying Apothecary. Coleman from Raven Guard can be very annoying if you get him with stealth, but that's a 2-card combo just by themselves. I think DOS takes the cake. Great card. It's a legendary. I would definitely say he is a must-have, though. Now, Witchfire has been changed, but it's still very effective. For 4 Psyker Energy, you're dealing 2 to 5 damage. That's it. Just a straight shot. And if you've got a troop out there that has 2 health, you know you're going to kill it. If you have a troop out there with 5 health, you might kill it. If you have a troop with 3 health, you have a high chance of killing it. But guess what? You don't have to use this on troops. You can use this on your opponent's Warlord. So again, let's say I've got 8 energy and I've got 5 Psyker Energy. I can play Oncto. That's 4 damage. I might draw another Oncto, I might not. Let's say I don't. But then I can still follow it up with the Witchfire. And for 4 energy, plus 4 Psyker Energy, I'm doing 6 to 9 damage. That's just 2 cards. That's not incorporating any other cards into this hypothetical combination. Now, Hidden One, these guys have got a decent stat line. They're 4/5 for 5 health. They've got a Psyker ability of 2, reveal a random card in your opponent's hand can act again. If you ask me, I think their ability's trash, except for having precognition. They're great for putting out a troop that your opponent cannot attack, and that they're going to have to eat 4 damage from some other way. They don't generate Psyker Energy, which is very important to note. But they do have 5 health, and they do have 4 damage, and they've got precognition. So even if they've got 1 health left, your opponent has got to waste a tactic to deal with him. They can't just throw away, a piddly, Fastidian infantry or something like that to deal with these guys. They've got to use a tactic or an ability. Otherwise, the next turn they're going to take 4 more damage. Izakor Or has Psyker 1, 5/5, great stat line, just 5s all around, and his rally ability is fantastic. This guy is probably, man, if I had to talk about legendaries, Penthudast and Izakor Or, and even we'll get to Balak Uthazar. Gosh, those three guys are the top 3 legendaries, and it's a hard call really to say who's the best. But look at this rally. Give precognition to all your units until your next turn. That includes your warlord. So Izakor Or, Ankhet Set, Izakor Or good old Warp Portal, or even Melgator. This guy's got a lot of potential to keep your troops on table, barring, tactics or board-wide destruction like the Conqueror from the World Eaters. And he's got a great stat line to follow it up with on the next turn. So just a good card. Now, Khalid support, I like the artwork here. I like the fact that sometimes you get to see Trader Legions with heavy bolters before their models stopped representing the fact that they ever used heavy bolters or any sort of heavy weaponry. For 3 energy, they deal 2 damage to an enemy and adjacent units. Their stat line is decent, but their cost is a little high, and their cost for their ability is a little high, but at the same time, these guys do cost normal energy, and they don't have anything to do with Psyker Energy. They don't generate Psyker Energy, but sometimes you're going to have the ability to just follow up with this. 3 energy, I did 2. I did 4 more energy to do 4, and then I spent some Psyker Energy, and I did another 2 to 5. Alright, maybe that's not a bad trade-off. There might be better ways to go about it. I would probably, if I had to choose between the 5s, I'd probably go with the cost beater, though. I like it. It's got flank, it's got cleave 2, and it's got 5 health. So it actually has a very high chance of surviving its flank attack. Some great combo here is cost beater with a little bit of quick blood, and suddenly it's a 5/7 with flank and cleave 2. That's not to be ignored. That's not to be overlooked. That can deal with a lot of your opponent's troops. And then if you happen to have another quick blood or something else, you can do it again on your next turn. Cost beater is really good. They're just, I don't know if they're a staple for not everybody. Maybe they're not, but I think they are probably just, I feel good having 2 of them in the decks that I've got. The Book of Magnus. Now, this is an interesting tutor card, because what it does is it returns to your deck all psychic powers you have played, and it draws 3 psychic powers from your deck. Now, if you built your deck accordingly, depending on how you play, specifically because, again, Thousand Suns, they're a combo legion. What are these combos? Well, we've seen a couple of combos with troops. We'll see a few more combos here when we get to Uthazar. The Book of Magnus, let's say you played that Witchfire early in the game, and then you played your Psyker Lash. Okay, well, Book of Magnus puts them back in your deck and draws them again. Or let's say you just only have 4 Psyker abilities in your entire deck. This here is specific tutoring. Now, granted, this is a legendary. Again, it's a 1-of in your deck, but if one card is going to give me the 3 cards that I know I will always want in my hand throughout the entire game, then it's a good card. On top of that, it returns those cards. So even if I played it, oh no, that's no good. Even if I played it, I'm still going to be able to get that card back in my hand. If I have Book of Magnus and 2 of those Psyker cards are already in my hand, why not play those cards and then play Book of Magnus? It's like I never lost anything, aside from the turn that it took to play them. So, very good legendary. Arman's Cabal, Another good stat line, 5, 6, we're starting to see some beefy health in regards to the Thousand Suns. They're low on the Psyker count, and they've got a ability give reflection to the next psychic power you play this turn, but it costs 3 energy. This is kind of the lower ability, lower level ability of what Uthazar does, because it costs such a huge amount of change. But if I got these guys on table, I could pay 3 energy to give reflection to Witchfire, and then I can play Witchfire twice. Okay, that's not bad, but I'd rather just use them to attack for 5. Cost of 6 is a little steep. Ashen Blow is the Thousand Suns Destroy a Troop. Now, it's important to note that it costs Psyker Energy, but if you are building up your Psyker Energy as a normal rate, you'll be able to use this on your 3rd turn, which at that point in the game, just imagine the things that can start to come out, whether it be a Jubok, whether it be Beast of Fire, or if you just save up. As long as your opponent has got 6 Psyker Energy, they have the potential of destroying whatever you put on the table. Mob Diet Assur. Now this guy, his stat line is now a 5/8. He costs 6 and he gains +1/+0. He loses can't attack until your next turn, and he can act again. He no longer has the attack by himself. It's not an automatic attack, so you actually just pay 2 to make him a 6/8, and he has the ability to act. I'd pass. I mean, it's a nice rare, it's an interesting thematic card, but there's better cards. Sekhmet Terminators, I would say, even though they're common, I would say these guys are better cards. The stat line of 4 and a 6 health is huge. The fact that they have Psyker 2 is very nice, and the fact that they have Frontline is the selling point for me. It really is, just helps define the protect the Warlord, protect the weaker guys in the back who are doing crazy magical powers and generating Psyker Energy. But the fact that these guys generate Psyker Energy with themselves is just a bonus. Now here we get to Belloc Uthazar, and he is a legendary. He is a key piece to a specific combo, but he works for all sorts of combos. First off, he costs 7. 7 normal energy, but he has Psyker 2, and while he's in play, your psychic powers have reflection, and his stat line is very nice. He's got 5 attack, he's got 8 health, so he can survive pretty well. At this point in the game, if you've pooled up energy just from your Warlord and haven't spent Psyker Energy at all, by the time you go to play him, you should have 12, maybe 13, I believe 12. 12 Psyker Energy? Yeah, 12 Psyker Energy. If you have Witchfire in hand, that means you can play Witchfire 3 times in a row. But as we've seen, it's very easy to generate Psyker Energy, so you might very well have 20, which lets you play Witchfire 5 times in a turn. You can play Uthazar and Witchfire and do 10 to 25 damage to your opponent's Warlord. 10 to 25 damage. Now, it's a 2-hit combo. It's a 2-combo thing, and it requires a legendary, and it requires you to have a lot of Psyker Energy. But 10 to 25 damage versus, let's say, for the same cost with Psychic Lash, which haven't been able to play it 6 times. Let's say, what did I say? What did I say? It had 25. Let's say you had 25, right? We're gonna play it 5 times. 5 times. If we can play it 5 times, if we could play it 5 times, that's 20 energy. So for Psyker Lash, we could play that 6 times, so 6 to 9 or 10 to 25. 6 to 9 with 1 card, 10 to 25 with 2 cards. I'll let you decide. If you see Uthazar in the shop and you want to do Thousand Suns, you must have him. You won't regret it. Kargori Dreadnought gains +1/+1 when you play a psychic power. And that's a nice little boost. It's nice. It's got a 7 stat line for a vehicle, which keeps it just out of range from a crack grenade destroying it. And the fact that it can increase its stats with, like, let's say a Psychic Lash. So you bring these guys out, you've got 10 Psyker Energy, you play Psychic Lash 3 times, and he's now a 9/10. pretty self-explanatory. It's not a bad card. You need to have some sort of closing option, and with the Thousand Suns, your cost 7-up cards are your closing options. Now, raiment, the horn raiment is a thematic thing. I like the fact that they put it in there because it's very iconic in terms of what Magnus looks like, the armor that he wears. But the ability to give your Warlord Relentless, gain shield, it's lackluster, especially for the cost. As nice as it is, and it would definitely, you know, having shield each turn is great to protect your Warlord and make it harder for your opponent to kill him. But the cost and the fact that it's not as a rally immediately, it's very underwhelming. And at 7, at turn where I can play 7 energy, if I had to choose between 2 cards, I would much rather play him. I'd even rather play him. Astral Warfare is the Psyker version of defensive satellites, if you will. It is dealing 2 to 5 damage to each enemy. It's going to be random for each enemy. You don't know what you're going to get. But 5 damage kills a lot of things. And you know what? So does 2 damage. It's a great board clear. And the fact that it costs Psyker Energy, now granted it's 8. That's a steep cost. That's not to be underestimated. If your opponent plays Astral Warfare, it's going to take them a few turns to recoup that cost. But they can follow up on the same turn because it costs Psyker Energy. They could play Astral Warfare, and then they could play a normal defensive satellites. And then they're doing anywhere between 3 to 9 damage to all enemies. That's crazy. So, combo. 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 Combo, why not? I mean, if it combos with itself, damn it, it's a combo. These guys are just combo guys. And now Assyrian, this is probably the pinnacle of combo and gamers. Assyrian Dreadnought deals 1 damage now. I disagree with this, but deals 1 damage now to a random enemy when you play Psychic Power. Well, if I'm playing it at turn 8, how much Psyker Energy could I have? I could have potentially 16 plus, which allows me to play Psychic Lash 5 times, so I could do 5 to 15 damage to random enemies, especially if there's only 1 enemy on the table, and then I can add an additional 5 to that, so I could do 10 to 20 damage. Combo! That's what these guys do. That's what these guys do. They used to have Psyker. They lost it. It ends games. Do you need him around on the table to end games at that point after that? Maybe. It's a vehicle, though. It's got 8 health. It's beefy. And if he comes out and you've got a reflection Psyker ability on table, then you've done your work. Scarab Occult. These guys have got front line. The stat line is nice. They cost 8, so that is a little bit of rough. And they generate Psyker 1. Their ability, however, lets them increase their stat line. And they can act again. So, in the same way that the Assyrian Dreadnought can come out and do some crazy damage with the Reflection Psyker Energy, if the Scarab Occult survives, they could take that same 20 energy and increase their stat line to a 11-14, and then attack with it. You know, I mean, there's ways to end the game here. These guys, your cost 7 to 8. This is how you end the game. You'll note, none of these are direct damage killers like, you know, Spirit of Vengeance, or Vengeful Spirit, or Pride of the Emperor, or Contrador. They're combo end gamers. But the way they do it, that's very definitive. If the combo goes off, suck it. Eternal Guardian. Now this guy is a board clear. If you can't get rid of him, he's a vehicle, and he's got 9 health, and I mean, just by that alone is nasty. But the fact that he can, for 5, do an Ashen Blow and then act again, you have to get rid of him. If you're playing with troops, you have to get rid of him, or he will get rid of all your troops and still hit your face. Very nice. I don't know if he's required in every deck. Between Assyrian and Eternal Guardian, maybe you want one of both. Vehicles are just nasty. Great card. It's not a must-have, but it's definitely a good card. And then we ended out with Karok, which has Rally if you have no other troops, gain front line. Very typical in Land Raider fashion in this game. High cost, over cost, and ultimately I'd pass. But if you are new to the game and you don't have these epics, or even the rare Scarab Colt, it's a decent trade-off. It's a 10-10 front line, and it's a vehicle, so it's not necessarily going anywhere. But 7, 8, 9. Why is 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. Ha ha. There you go. That's your joke for the night. That's how these guys end games. They're very combo heavy. Their tactics do a lot of damage. They have a lot of various methods of dealing damage, 2 to 5. But if you combo it and give these things reflection, or you combo it with another thing that's adding damage, or that increases its attack ability, or you combo it and gain superiority, you have effectively used the Thousand Suns appropriately. That's what they do. That's how they play. They're very combo driven. So that's the Thousand Suns. Now, how do you play against the Thousand Suns? It's a little bit easier than it used to be. But probably the biggest two things are to keep in mind when you're facing the Thousand Suns is keep in mind where their Psyker Energy is going to be on their turn. And remember, what does that open up for them in terms of options? What can they do with that Psyker Energy? Are they going to have 8 Psyker Energy? Are they going to have the ability to do an Astral Warfare? How many cards do they have in hand? I don't know. Do I risk it? Do I not risk it? Do they have 6 Psyker Energy? Are they going to Ash and Blow this big nasty troop I'm going to throw down there? Do I risk it? Don't I risk it? Am I just by myself? Am I in a vulnerable position where I am about to take a Bellic Uthazar and a Witchfire to the face? Or a Assyrian Dreadnought and Psyker Lash? Or should I throw down a bunch of little cheap troops to help absorb some of that random damage? Do I risk it? Don't I risk it? You have to know what parts of the combo can happen, what parts of their energy pool that they have available to them to make it work. If they've only got 4 Psyker Energy, odds are not high that they're going to combo too many things with Psyker abilities. They're going to have to build up to do that, and that puts you in a position to be able to capitalize. And if you can get to them before they can set those pieces up, before they can gather those resources, if you can force them to use those resources in other ways that they would not necessarily want to, I hate to use a Witchfire on this nasty, ugly troop, but I got to get rid of it, otherwise it's going to ruin my day, then it's better to do that. They might still get it back with Book of Magnus, but you make them work for it. You got to make them work for it. So those are the 2 things I would recommend in terms of how to face them, how to fight them. And like I said, they're easier to face than they were before. I like them. I'm glad I waited to do the card by card because it was important. There was going to be some changes. I think they still are very viable. They still play. If you like a combo style, if you like the potential to see how you can get your cards to interact with each other and capitalize with not just these abilities, but then using the neutral cards, and I mean, geez, just being able to throw out a mortar carrier and at the same time use a Psyker ability to do damage on another troop, that's crazy. To do defensive satellites and Astral Warfare, that's crazy. Maybe you want to go all tactics and do Void Engagement, and Void Engagement draws you right into a Psyker ability. Well, it's a tactic, and that deals 3 damage. There's just so many ways to play them, and that's good. And I think they've done a decent job here. They're fragile early in the game. Their health stats are not great, but if they accumulate power, their stats and their combo potential really open up and they become lethal. So that is it for me, guys. That is my Thousand Suns card by card. Thank you for watching. I hope it was useful to you. I hope it was informative. And keep playing Legions. We'll talk to you next time. All right, bye.
Alright, that wraps it up for me. If you liked what you saw, feel free to like and subscribe. Add any comments below. And if you think the video might be useful or the series might be useful, feel free to share that with other players that you know as well. And we'll talk to you later.